Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
Hello, and Commander Cockins.
And we are Trekyards hosts reimagined properly, as you can see. Slight differences here and there. You'll never see them.
It's got my haircut.
I need to get my hair cut. But I grew it longer. Usually mine's shorter, so there you go. That's the difference here. Anyway, welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about a ship we were kind of complaining about a little bit early on in Discovery's run because we heard of D7s and they clearly weren't. But then they must have heard the Trekyards fans complain because they actually gave us a true D7 at some point, and I gotta say, it's pretty nice. And we're gonna look at it today and look at a few of the differences.
Yeah, and this one is designed by Ryan Dennings, who was in Season 1, and then designed a lot of ships in Season 2. We actually met him at a recent Star Trek convention in the UK, and that was a really great treat. He, in fact, has watched our stuff for things and bobs, and maybe on this, who knows. And this model is from Star Trek Online, obviously the licensed video game, and so it's not the original model from the show, but it's based on the original model from the show, and obviously clearer views than we've ever had it before.
And special thanks to Thomas Maroney for providing these, because these are from Star Trek Online, so canon-ish?
Licensed, as we often say.
Licensed.
And it's one part of two, because we're going to look at it very directly in comparison with other Klingon ships. This is more the first look. And it's certainly nice to finally see it without motion blur. I know we looked at it right after the season ended as like, can we grab any little detail? But now we can just see it. So Stuart, what do you now think, seeing it cleanly?
It's nice. It's good, and it's got some subtle changes, which are just that. They're subtle. But they make it its own thing. But at first glance, it's reimagining done properly. A few little tweaks here and there, just to kind of upgrade things a little bit, but maintain that original feel. So I think it's great.
When you're saying we'll do the new version of this, normally that would imply it should look the same, just updated, rather than throwing it out the window. So this, could not be mislabeled as anything else. It is what it is. It feels like what it is. And honestly, we were blown away by how similar it is. It's the exact antithesis of what Discovery has done, which is we want to forge our own path in creative design, and especially in Klingons, where literally the directive was to not make it look like Klingon designs. That was literally the objective. And so this, I'm sure Brian Fuller must have fainted when seeing this. It's like, oh my god, a Klingon ship on Discovery? What? But, as I've designed a D7 as well for the Avalon universe, it's really tricky to go into one of those famous shapes and do anything there, because either it's all been done, or it can't be changed, or if it is changed, why? And I think some of the things that Ryan did here are really, really clever, and simple and effective. But that said, this is one of the better views because it hides the most radical change. Fair to say?
Mm-hmm. Very fair to say. But it also points out some that I didn't even realize were there. So,
speaking of,
well, the neck, the boom attachment at the back, is quite beefier. And it looks good. It's a good strengthening of that spine that people have complained about. Even adding some ridge detail, which is similar to what the ridges on the Klingon forehead should look like. It's like, wow, that's where the ridges went. They migrated to the ships. But it also takes it away from the Katinga aesthetic a little bit with the engineering section on the back. Those side-mounted things on the top, those actually are very, very, very true to the original D7 shapes, according to the models and stuff. The Katingas are a little bit different, so I kind of like that. I like that a lot.
I felt like they've shrunk the top pod even further. And like I say, I've got comparison renders with the D7 and Katinga later on. Yeah, that neck definitely surprised me. I love the front of the neck with the ridges, the spikes. It feels like an alligatory, armor spikes. The back half, I don't know why. If there was windows in between, if there was or pipes or something functional in between the slices, because, well, I was about to say they aren't like deck size, but obviously these ships are hugely bigger because it's Discovery, so I guess they are now deck amounts. But if it was an actual D7 size, I wonder what that's meant to be.
Well, you'd assume that there is room in that neck, even on the D7, for one turbo lift shaft or one just walkway, or one of each, one side by side maybe. I have no problem with that back part, the black area in the middle there, being windows. I think that'd be actually kind of cool. See a Klingon walking down this corridor and all of a sudden there's windows. I think that'd be really neat, actually. Very dramatic.
But let's go to the second picture, which is our little claim to fame here. Ryan Dennings himself and Team Trekyards. Lovely guy to meet. Really gives me a lot of hope for Season 3 when he's allowed to actually design what he wants to design in the way he wants to design it. It's better stuff.
Yeah, Ryan was a good guy to meet.
But the next picture, though, is... I mean, you know, it's the sizes. It's the shapes. It's both iterations and legacies. You've got the TOS, Connie, and D7s, and their 10-year predecessors of the Constitution class and D7 to scale.
Bigger is not always better. If you're gonna, there's no way that Enterprise fits in the Prime timeline and then eventually became Kirk's ship. No. If the size was the same, I might be able to accept it a little bit easier. But they are comparable to each other, which I like. They've kept that kind of. Although the D7 looks longer than the Enterprise, even though the original D7 was about the same length, if not shorter than the Enterprise, I believe.
Yeah, you got a sense there were smaller, more compact warships.
And people do complain a lot about the size of ships in Star Trek generally being small compared to other franchises, which is absolutely true. But this is something that's been established for 50 years now. So the upscaling kind of bothers me a bit. But to keep up with the upscaling, I'm glad that they're both on the same level.
But as with many things in Discovery, we retcon out the sizes because you can't rectify them. They're nonsense. But they're
even though on screen on the displays it does have the Enterprise dimensions from the Franz Joseph Technical Manual, which are the TOS Enterprise. But that's another story altogether. We did video on it. Go watch it.
And obviously, like I say, we'll do the full comparison of both ships later on. But you can see just from this first one that, I mean, it is undeniably, you can even argue it's closer to a D7 than the Enterprise is to Enterprise in terms of aesthetic feel. I mean, even the neck pieces, the new thicker elements at the back. Now you look at the other D7 model, there are sort of slight bits of that, just obviously not as dramatic. So, I mean, they actually feel more similar now compared to the two Enterprises.
Yeah, but there's enough small tweaks and things that there's changes all over the ship. But the general shape is still the same, which I absolutely love.
And proportions as well, roughly, which helps a lot.
Yeah, and that's how you do it right, guys. Sure, it's got bigger nacelles. I mean, there's a few that are obvious right off the hop, like bigger nacelles, a little bit beefier neck, as we said earlier, a little bit different shape in the front, as far as the new one is more straight. The other one's kind of stepped.
Well, I say sharper. It's a much sharper feel.
Sharper feel, eh? Yeah. I'll take that. That. I like it.
But side view, again to scale, you can see that yes, the new D7 is quite a lot longer, but obviously, as we know, longer does not mean internal volume. So the Enterprise certainly has more. Now, this is what confused me, both in two things, and I'm glad I remembered. If you look at the top of the Discovery Star Trek Online D7, you would think, oh, Sam, look, you photoshopped off the top of the bridge.
I was looking at that just before you said it.
It's flat.
Wrong.
Yeah,
change that.
That confused me. But when you look at this, you think, holy shit. One of the things that normally people complain about is the length of the D7's neck. No, it is bigger in proportion on this design, and I had no concept of that from the three-quarters in the show. I mean, it is actually longer, I would say, in proportion.
It is, but it's also, like I said, beefier, even from the side. It doesn't go to quite a narrow point at the attachment point of the original D7. So longer actually works in this case because it's more structurally sound, and I think that's probably why it was continued a little bit longer.
I think it looks a little bit silly, though. I think it's about 15 to 18% too long.
It does look a little bit too long, but that's one of those changes when you're reimagining something that I can live with a little bit. Sure, it's proportionally off just a little bit as far as the length goes from the side, but at least it holds true to what it should be. It doesn't go way outside the box. Well,
it hides it in other views, which shows a good level of design. And it's funny because in my D7 for the Avalon, I actually shrunk it because that was an obvious. And it feels much stouter, much more bulky. This gives it a much more elongated, more maybe elegant vibe. I don't know. What do you think of the nacelles now that we're seeing them for the first time? And the side view is a good example because you see the radical departure. I mean, this is the thing that is completely different.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were quite so different, but they definitely feel like something out of a different sci-fi universe. There's a little bit too much going on for design aesthetics for TOS era, in my opinion, because they were simple. Those were simple designs. That being said, I have no real problem with it. It's one of those changes that I'm willing to accept, just because everything else holds so true. Now they are longer, both in the before the front of the pylon and the back. They've been extended quite a bit. Proportionally, though, it equals out, so it's fine. It's fine. I just didn't realize they were so detailed and greebly.
Yeah, my note is they're really interesting, and that's what we got from the show. I think again, that's the only thing that he chose to change, because they're not the same in any way. They're not. But my rationale was that the original D7, I mean, they're just thin tube, oval tube. They're basic. They do what they do. La la la. The Klingons have never been that many glow elements. They've never really been that sort of race. That's one thing they've stuck away from. But you're meant to believe that there's weapons in the nacelles, which is a very unusual thing. So much so that when you see them in raster, it just shoots. Who cares? It's a thing that happens. We're not going to try and fix it. So when I look at these new D7 nacelles, I see it as the front glow element up until just past those grills. That's the 4 disruptor cannons. And then the secondary bit, right below that, is the warp nacelle elements. And the top bit is the housing that keeps it all together. So it's distinctly 2 elements. That's why it's much bigger and much more energized glow field, because it's distinctly 2 elements in sort of harmony there. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually really like that idea, breaking it down into 2 different parts because of the whole disruptors in them. I think it's cool. And one thing I've noticed too, with newer ship designs for Star Trek, whether it be TNG or whatever, I find a lot of the nacelle configurations, you could cut those off and put a handle on them and make them a rifle or a gun.
Oh yeah, this would look good.
That's definitely the case with this. Whereas the original TOS aesthetic, you can't do that. I mean, you could, but it would look stupid. They're just too simple. So I think it says a lot about the difference in the design aesthetics.
The one thing I would say about this is that I don't like how exposed the glow elements are. The fact there's so much housing on the top and nothing on the bottom, that I think is the big misstep. I would have needed to have seen another block of housing about a third as thin as the top on the bottom to cover it up. Even if you keep the same feel, to give it this enclosed feeling and link it all together. Otherwise it feels very exposed, very open, very unfinished, which is odd. So I think that's the trick it was missing. It would make it look less unique, sure, but I think
it certainly looks a lot. Yeah, I think it certainly looks a lot more vulnerable the way it is.
Yeah.
And the Klingons, I don't think, would do that necessarily.
I mean, this fleet, you could argue, is rushed out, but then they get things wrong all the time with, new uniforms of Discovery, Enterprise, but they're not. They've been around for 10 years because of these short. I mean, let's not add the thought there, which wasn't put in. But the next picture, though, Stuart, back in 3/4 views from the back, and oh my goodness, the back, Stuart, it just is a back of a Katinga D7. My goodness, Stuart. My God,
pretty much.
Stuart. My God.
All right. And it's got an aft torpedo launcher by the looks of it. You see the shuttle bay door there in the top module, which is cool.
Next view, though, from the bottom. So what are you thinking of these nacelles now? You're seeing them as a 3/4 with the tubes. I didn't think there were tubes sticking out the back. I'll be honest. That surprised me a little bit. What do you think?
I actually kind of like it. It's a cool look. They're more dynamic for sure. They still look vulnerable, but at the same time they don't. One thing I don't like is the back, the way they're kind of curved like that concave shape. It bugs me a little bit. Other than that, I mean, very very Katinga feeling at the bottom here with the Klingon emblem and the bump on the bottom of the secondary hull. So
it's like Ryan said, right, I'm going to leave the main hull 97% the same. The head, I can do a few fun things. The thing I want to change is themselves. It's a prototype version. But really, he was like, it's a D7. What do you want? It should look like a D7. I mean, this is the non-rocket science approach. But yeah, what is up with the back of those nacelles? I mean, glowing bits at the back shouldn't be allowed anyway because they imply thrust and there's no thrust there.
And I was going to say if they weren't glowing, that shape would be fine. But even that, I would square it off. I would just have it be like a vertical line.
Or add some more grilling like there is in other parts of the nacelle, just like a set of lines. But it's weird the tubes though. I guess that's close to warp coils because warp coils are meant to be of a more rounded shape. But again, it's very. What was the thought there?
I'm not quite sure.
Doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look finished.
No. Well, exactly. And I can see these being early prototype engines. That's fine. This is 10 years before TOS. Well, 9 now, but whatever. So, yeah, they throw these out. They're big. They're bulky. They eventually refine them down, armor them up a bit because they realize it's kind of a weak spot, shrink things down. I love that idea. So... But as for the round elements, I mean, just the way that the warp field has to, the coils have to work. I mean, that's fine. They're probably the exact same in the original D7 as well, but you can't see them. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely works. We know what a D7 looks like. It's not this in terms of the one in the future. So this is obviously D7 Mark 1 or Proto 1 because it's so early. So yeah, I buy that. I just wish they could make that logically canon, whatnot. But next view is kind of the classic view. And we get a very clear view of the new head, which I think is tremendous. Honestly. Ooh. Ooh.
I like the cutout that he did with the top part, where it kind of steps in. Very cool, subtle touch, but still maintaining that original look. But the shape of the bottom element is a little bit too squashed for me. I prefer the more rounded D7 look, but that's just because I'm used to the D7. And even the Katinga has the rounded one as well. This one just seems okay. We need to change it. Let's squash it a bit. Not a huge complaint, to be honest, and it looks like we got a forward firing photon torpedo tube there, which we all know that in TOS that should be a deflector. Small nitpick.
It's funny in my D7, I stretched it out more towards the boom, so more like a teardrop rather than squishing it, because I thought the ball shape looked a bit daft because it's a big ball. It feels very antithetical, especially when the rest of the shapes on the D7 are so squared. To have a big ball is like, this is not conducive to the design philosophy of what they're presenting. But I just think the simplicity of having that cutout in the top is simple, but it's effective. I always wish there was more weapons there. or I don't really, but it feels like there should be a reason for that. Although we are getting a window scale here, which is always tricky with Discovery because scale is not a thing they care about. So I'm wondering, is that really meant to reflect the size? Because the D7 doesn't feel that much smaller in terms of window scale, I wouldn't have said. But we know the ship is much, much, much larger.
I can see that that top part being like a deck. One deck, but it's hard to say. The windows seem on par with what we see on the Katinga and the D7, so it's not really scaled. The windows aren't scaled down, I don't think.
I think they realized that if we don't change the window scale in 10 years, we'll just claim they're the actual sizes, because visually it looks right, even if scale it doesn't make sense. If we made them really small, all the ships would feel really big, and then you couldn't justify that later down the line. So I think they're saying, oh yeah, but then look at the secondary hull. I mean, how many decks do those windows imply? Like 15, even though it's meant to be like 6 and 8.
At least a dozen, at least 12. I don't know. Yeah, the window thing is kind of confusing.
Although I'm noticing, if you look at the nacelles, above the left there's a red. It's essentially a gun port. If you're at the next view, it looks like it's flat, but if you go back again, we can see it's not. So I'm guessing that's where the disruptors come from. The very diddly red sort of nibs on the top.
Keep in mind, this is a Star Trek Online ship, and red is weapons.
Yes. Grain of salt there.
Yeah. But yeah, actually, look, as you were saying about the nacelle, I was looking at them going, these look exactly like the V11 Stormhawk nacelles from the front. From FASA, which is the D7 that the Romulans converted. Just a cool little nod there, I guess.
Oops. But last view is the first view is the last view. Now we've gone around it. And you can see the back of the head, those big grills have now been reduced to one big and one small set, which I hadn't noticed.
Well, as I said from the beginning, this is the D7 we wanted from the beginning, even though they claimed other ships were D7s. Clearly they were not. But at least they got on board at the end to kind of make it right. I really appreciate that, at least.
Yes.
Got to give them praise for what they do right. And thank you, Ryan, for doing this. This is a great ship. And it was a pleasure to absolutely meet him in Birmingham. So, see, I said it right. Birmingham.
Well done.
So yeah, and actually see him change a Katinga picture into like his version was super cool to watch, because I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that was a change. Oh, I didn't realize that was a change. And now looking at this, it's like, oh yeah, I can see all the stuff that he did.
That was a special print. I'm gonna treasure Mr. Ryan. But my closing thoughts. I think this is probably would you agree this is probably the single best design in Discovery ship-wise?
No.
What beats this?
The Disco Prize. This is very nice. It's a very nice ship. Just it's not Prime.
Okay.
But as holding true to the TOS aesthetic and doing a reboot like a reboot should be done, yes, this one would qualify as the best. The Enterprise is almost there, but some of the changes were made by the visual effects team. That was not John Hughes' choice, so got to say that.
But yeah, I'm totally for this design. I think it's great. I look forward to seeing it more in the Section 31 show, we guess.
Yeah.
Or go play in Star Trek 9.
Yeah.
And Eagle Moss out early 2020. And then we'll maybe do a review of that, because that will be fun to see it, and all its opinions might change,
Always does when we do it in 3D. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the notification icons. And check out all the links down below. We got lots of cool stuff and great ways to help the channel.
Like Patreon, super important way. It's monthly, like Hulu, Netflix, things like that. You do a little bit, and then you get to enjoy all of our content, knowing that you're helping us to make more of it. Because if we don't have that support, then we'll peter out and not be able to do it. And then you'll say, well, where do Trekyards go? And we'll be like, well, we got thrown out of our houses because no rent money. It's like, oh no. So Patreon's great for that. Or if you want to do a direct interaction, we do our live streams every single week. You can jump in, comment, question, thought, put in a super chat. We always read out every single super chat, and you get to be part of that community there. Or a one-time donation at trekyards.com, or buy merch, as Stuart said in links down below. Easy to find, and when Eagle brings their D7 out, you can get some money off with our codes. So all the things, Stuart, all the things.
That's right. So until next time, guys, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Klingon.
See you soon.
Bye, guys.